Hi, this is Dr. Mercola, and today I'm going to address the massive misinformation that the media and health experts have given you about cholesterol over the last few decades and provide you with the scientific backup as to why this myth is terribly flawed. In the health area, no delusion has had wider acceptance in a longer run than the belief that cholesterol levels in your blood are a major risk factor in the cause of heart disease and stroke. So how did this massive misinformation campaign start? Well, it all goes back more than 100 years ago when something known as the lipid hypothesis or the cholesterol theory was developed by a German pathologist named Rudolf Virchow. He performed chemical analysis on arterial plaques taken from corpses at the time and discovered that they contained large amounts of cholesterol. Now, he theorized that the cholesterol from the blood infiltrated the walls of the artery and thus caused the plaques that he found there. However, in 1925, researchers found that your body produces 80 to 90% of its own cholesterol, and the diet is relatively unimportant. But in fact, if you go to these original research, you'll find that the correlations were very weak, and subsequent analysis has shown that none of the relations for dietary fat or cholesterol are significantly related to the later development of heart disease. But this information is not publicized in the media at all. And the final benefits, evidence for the benefits of cholesterol reduction came when the development of the statin drugs in the late 80s. Now, these drugs reduce cholesterol levels considerably more than those used previously. Statins are very potent medications, and of course, 1 in 4 Americans over the age of 45 now are on statin drugs. So this is not an insignificant issue because the researchers have been able to use the information that I've just presented to manipulate and compel healthcare professionals and delude the public into going on these drugs. So in addition to lowering your sugar intake, which is obviously one of the most important foundational approaches you can have to reduce your risk for heart disease and just about every other disease, there are other things you can do, such as optimizing your vitamin D intake. And you certainly are going to, the ideal way to do that is you can do it for free by exposing lots of your skin to sun and do it in a way that you don't get sunburned. If that's not available to you, you can use a safe tanning bed that doesn't emit dangerous EMFs and has a electronic ballast and not a magnetic ballast. And if those options are not available to you, then of course you can take an oral vitamin D pill. This is a massive delusion, this myth, it's pervasive. Hopefully I've provided you with a scientific basis that you can effectively refute any of your friends or relatives or health experts who are seeking to convince you otherwise, because this really is a myth, it's really a delusion. And if you don't understand this, it's going to be a serious impediment for you and your family to take control of your health.
There's two things that I think are really important and key here, and this is something that I've been discussing for a number of years now in different ways, and I want to just kind of solidify this understanding. Basically, your body consists of a bunch of balloons and tubes, and there's no straight pipe anywhere. And if the elasticity of your tissue starts to harden, then what can happen is you can have a break in the balloons that make up the capsules of your joints, for example, or the balloons behind your lungs, your pleura. And if that breaks down, then essentially you can lose the negative pressure that allows you to breathe. So the actual structure of your joint capsule, the structure of your organs, these balloons, for example, has to be made out of certain substances. Fats, latex-like materials, vitamin C, sulfur, silicon compounds, and that's what really is going to give you that longevity. So one of the big ones that's been found is these long-chain omega-3s, which is DHA and EPA. So I take at least 3 of these every day. Some of you might go, hey, let's do fish oil instead. Some of you might go, let's do krill oil. But this long-chain omega-3 is different than the medium-chain omega-3 ALA. So there's 3 omega-3s. That's easy to understand. There's 3 essential omega-3s. You don't need to worry about omega-6 because omega-6 is automatic. You have avocados, you eat almonds, you have olive oil, you get your omega-6. That's easy. That's not a worry. But the thing to think about is like, okay, I got to focus on omega-3 because we don't automatically get that. The ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in the conventional diet and even in some of these advanced diets is actually quite off. One of the things that we found out with vegetarianism is that this DHA, EPA, ALA, 3 omega-3s are essential. And they're very important long term. You can get away without them, but one day you'll pay the price. It'll be a neurological price, could be an inflammatory price, could be a joint problem. And once the joint problems start in, it's much more difficult to deal with it later than in advance. It's much better to be preventative of these things. So one of the tools that I carry is this. Obviously, this is the David Wolfe Omega-3 algae oil. This is algae oil. This is that product I was telling you has 1 milligram of astaxanthin in every capsule. This is the whole thing about our joints. Our joints are actually not what we think they are. There's a negative pressure. I was talking with Dr. Lyons. I think I saw you over there. Right there he is, right there. So he was noticed over the years when people had joint problems that if he put a needle into the joint, if the joint was healthy, the needle gets sucked into the joint because it's negative pressure. That's one of the reasons why your joints have levitational qualities. When it's bone on bone, that means there's some kind of problem. The liquid can actually have a negative atmospheric pressure. Gases can't, but a liquid can. And so that liquid that's in that joint, that DHA, that omega-3, can actually help your body to create a negative pressure, seal the joint off so that your joint can repair itself. I'd recommend that strategy long before getting a surgery. You should probably look into not only the right nutrition for that joint capsule, for example, DHA, long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, and certain compounds that influence healthy joint development, for example, sulfur, MSM, DMSO, sulfur-bearing amino acid foods. For example, garlic has kind of a sulfury smell to it. Eggs have a sulfury smell to it. Spirulina has a sulfury smell to it. That's a sulfur-bearing protein that creates good, flexible joint material and seals in that capsule so there's no gap. Because if there's an infectious organism that goes, oh, that's a weak joint capsule, there's no immune system inside that joint. So every infection goes, we want in.
Mike, let's begin this interview by you giving us a self-introduction. Tell us, who are you?
Okay, sure. Thanks for having me here, Ed. I'm known as the Health Ranger online. I'm a person who used to be very unhealthy, and then I recognized that doctors weren't going to be able to help me get healthy. So I educated myself over several years, over 5,000 hours of study into nutrition, the causes of health, the causes of disease, the corruption of conventional medicine, how the FDA really operates, how Big Pharma really works. I taught myself these things and then used that information to transform my own health radically. I mean, I used to be borderline obese. I used to be borderline diabetic. I was in chronic pain for more than 10 years. And today I'm in a state of what my naturopath describes as perfect health. I have LDL cholesterol of 67, HDL cholesterol of 62, my resting pulse is 48. I'm considered a very healthy person now. How the USDA has given up its sole purpose to protect American consumers and instead appears to be doing everything in its power to protect the very industries it is supposed to regulate. Look at the recent food pyramid. You know, for years and years we had the 4 food groups and the 5 food groups in the food pyramid. Well, the USDA redesigned it, and they redesigned it with the help of a team that has also done a lot of public relations work for the dairy industry. You log on to a website and you enter your age and your level of physical activity, and then it gives you your official USDA food menu that you're supposed to follow. Well, what do you know? Milk is on every one of those menus. You're supposed to drink more milk than ever. We should all be big milk drinking Americans here. Why? Because the dairy industry has great influence on the USDA. In fact, the creation of these food pyramids is really just an exercise in pleasing special interest groups and lobbyists. And the way they get people trapped in this system is very, very clever. And I want to talk about this in some detail. It's disease screening. Now, whether we're talking about cancer or psychiatric diseases or many other diseases, screening is where the scam is. Screening is where they recruit patients off the street and convince them they have a disease and give them a disease label that the person then associates with. They say, I have cancer, or I am bipolar, or I have ADHD. The person then associates themselves with that disease. Then they believe their disease and they believe they need the drugs. They're trapped in a lifelong system of pharmaceuticals.